In this video, we're going to be talking about how I wrecked my '89 Jeep Comanche. I'm long enough, you know that in, I believe it was May of 2021, I was on the way home from O'Reilly's. I had got an oil change kit for the Comanche because I was leaving for a wheeling trip the next morning. I was on the way home, I was doing about 55, and I was on a 2-lane highway, and traffic was pretty bad, and there was a car turning off in front of me. They were turning right, and so I had slowed down already because, you know, they were turning, they had the turn signals on and everything, and we were in a curve. As this car is turning off into their driveway, I see a truck, a Dodge Dakota, coming straight for the front of my truck going 60 miles an hour. And the guy was looking down at his phone and coming straight on. So I tried to follow that car into their yard just to get out of the way to avoid a head-on collision. And of course that car saw what was going on and stopped right there in the road. So I didn't have anywhere to go. Truck that was coming head on actually hit me in the rear of the Comanche. Hit my rear driver's tire, and it spun me into oncoming traffic. So I'll use my daughter's little train to show you kind of what happened. So his vehicle was going straight for the front of the Comanche, but I turned off just enough so that instead of him hitting me right here, he hit my tire, and it actually bent my 14 bolt, pushed the tire into my quarter panel and bent it all up, broke my tail light, ripped my leaf springs out, and it actually separated my drive shaft in the middle of the road. And you can see that the bumper, the mounts on that bumper are still pretty bent, but I just haven't fixed it or anything like that. That's one of the only things that I never did was fix the bumper, and I really need to. After he hit me, like I said, I spun into oncoming traffic, and then he hit the truck behind me head on. So I thought they could get out of the way, but I guess they were following me a little too close, and so whenever I banked off, they didn't have time to react, and they got the brunt force of it. And then after he bounced off that truck, he spun around and hit the truck behind him. So that one guy totaled pretty much 4 vehicles that day. Just texting and driving, just being a huge idiot. Once I got out of my vehicle and I saw that my rear tire was now almost wrapped around the rear of my vehicle, I was like, holy crap. So I ran up the truck behind me and I asked, the guy, I was like, are you okay? And he was like, yeah, I'm fine. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go check on the other drivers. So I went up to the guy that had hit me, and he was just bug-eyed, just like zoned out. And I was like, dude, are you okay? And he was like, you gotta help me. And I was like, what's wrong? He was like, my truck is leaking. And I was like, what? He was like, my truck is leaking. You gotta help me fix my truck. I mean, he was just like totally unconcerned about anything that he had run into, the people's safety. But so I went and checked on the other driver. They were okay. Luckily, everybody walked away from it. It is a miracle that we all survived. But it still blows my mind to this day that all he cared about was his truck. It was a spray painted black Dodge Dakota, and he was worried about the coolant leaking in the road and thinking that we could fix his truck like right there and he could drive home. But whatever. The trucks that he ran into, of course mine was the oldest one, but he hit my truck, he hit a brand new Colorado, and then he hit a brand new, I believe it was a Z71, and totaled all 3 of those. Those vehicles are no longer on the road. This is like the only survivor vehicle-wise from the wreck. So I knew the fire department was on the way, and it was Southwood Fire Department's district, so whenever they got there, I knew most of the volunteer firefighters, and they actually let me use their tools to help get the Comanche out of the road. They helped me take the drive shaft out and they helped me kind of push the axle back underneath the Jeep. So big shout out to Southwood Fire Department for helping me out that day. After I refused going to the hospital and all that stuff, I finally got the Comanche home, and it was just like, oh God, what do I do now? Because, you know, I just spent all this time and money building this Jeep, and now it's just like trashed sitting in my yard. And I was super bummed because I was supposed to take it to Uwharrie the next day for a trip. The next day was the 24 hours of Uwharrie. So if you're in North Carolina or the eastern part of the country, definitely check that event out. It's awesome. But I didn't want to cancel the trip. I still wanted to go. So instead, me and my buddy, we took my LJ up to Uwharrie. Whenever we got to Uwharrie, we went to the outpost just to see all the rigs that were coming in and out from the 36 hours of Uwharrie. And I saw a couple of guys I knew that had actually ran the event, and I was talking with them. And then I saw a Comanche that was almost the same color as this one. It was kind of like a grayish, bluish color. So I went over to check this Comanche out, you know, because I had just wrecked mine the day before, and started talking to him, and he said, you know, he was with Barnes four-wheel drive, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Oh, I was like, yeah, I actually wrecked my Comanche yesterday. Somebody texting and driving, not paying attention, slammed right into me. I'm pretty sure, you know, it's totaled. You know, I don't know because it just happened yesterday. I haven't, you know, checked the frame or the unibody or anything like that. And, you know, he was just like, man, you know, that sucks. You know, I'm really sorry. I was like, yeah, you know, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't want to, you know, completely abandon the project or anything. And so I just went about my weekend wheeling the LJ, had a great time, you know. And then the way home kind of sucked just because I knew when I got home I was gonna have to dive into the Comanche just to see what was, you know, what was gonna be the verdict of everything. If I was gonna be able to fix it, or am I just gonna have to like back half it and, you know, make a tube buggy. I really didn't want to do a tube bed or anything just because I like full-bodied rigs. You know, dovetails and stuff, they're okay, but I'm just not a huge fan of the straight up, you know, cut the frame off and then tube, buggy, everything else. Nothing against it. My personal preference is I like full-bodied rigs or full-paneled rigs. I feel like it has more like cool points, I guess you could say, style points maybe. So after I got back from Uwharrie, I literally took the bed off that night and I started just pulling measurements. I measured everything on that unibody frame, just trying to see if it was even across both sides. So I had my brother, Cecil Taylor, he came in and he helped me do all the measurements. He does auto body stuff like that. He does frame repairs, this, that, and other. So he brought over his tools for measuring for bent frames, and we measured this Jeep probably an hour trying to figure out if it was bent. And thank goodness the unibody was fine. The bed was messed up, the axle was messed up, the leaf springs were messed up, bumper and the leaf spring hangers were all bent, which was all stuff that wasn't very important to me. You know, all that stuff I can fix eventually. I got home on a Sunday, and I believe it was that following Monday, I got a message from Connor saying like, hey man, I'm pretty gutted from, you know, the story of your Comanche. I talked with the guys at Barnes, and we would like to sponsor the rebuild of your Comanche. And I was floored. I mean, I still to this day like am super appreciative of everything that Barnes did for this truck. It was unbelievable. They did not have to do it, and they did. And they really wowed me with their products and their customer service and everything like that. My plan was just to, you know, if the unibody was straight, just to find another leaf spring, another 14 bolt, and then just try to patch this thing back together the best I could, knowing good and darn well that I should be four-linking this thing at this point. But at that time, you know, I had just put all the money into this truck. I didn't have the thousands of dollars that it would take to four-link it like it should be. I didn't have that money at the time. So after we figured out everything that I would need to go ahead and get started initially for this 4-link conversion, you know, they sent it out. They sent me some big Barnes 4-wheel drive decals to put on the side of the truck. And, you know, I pretty much documented every single thing that I did and put it on my Instagram. I didn't have a YouTube account then. I really wish I would have, because that'd have been super cool to document the whole thing on YouTube. But so if you go back to my Instagram page, it's at 6 Feet Under Fab on Instagram. You can see the whole documentation of me 4-linking this thing. It's pretty cool. I mean, the products that they sent out, literally all I did was I measured like 1,000,000 times, and I cleaned the unibody where it was, and I tacked them on, and I pretty much got it a roller. I flexed it out. Everything cleared suspension wise. There was no binding or anything like that. I just fully welded it, and I've been running it ever since. Flawless, no issues at all. I believe my favorite part about this 4-link, other than the massive amount of articulation, is that it's maintenance free. The only thing that I've done since I have installed this 4-link is just make sure that the nuts and bolts are torqued properly. And I've done that like twice. And they were never loosened up, never anything. Like, knock on wood, I have not had any issues at all. So I know this video is a lot of talking, and I apologize, but I feel like I just have a lot to say. So what I'm gonna show you now is the actual 4-link itself. And I know I've made a video a while back when I did a walk around of it, but I just kinda want to show you everything that is entailed in the 4-link kit. So a lot of people ask, you know, what springs are you running? They're actually 3-inch LJ springs that I took out of the back of my LJ whenever I did the coilover conversion. So you can see here, everything's pretty much Barnes 4-wheel drive. So I did have to get another 14 bolt. I found that local, thank goodness. But they sent out the diff cover, they sent out the truss, they sent out the upper control arm mounts right there, the lowers, the bump stop pads, the coil spring retainers, and the coil spring pad. Basically everything that I needed they sent out, except for the coil springs. So you can see the mounts right here. Sorry, everything's like super dirty. I didn't realize that, my bad. Oh, and the pinion guard. Those things are awesome. I've slammed that into so many rocks. And I mean, you can literally just go through a patch of rocks and not even worry about it. But you can see the lowers right here and the uppers, they're all super beefy. So whenever I was trying to figure out exactly where I wanted my axle to go, I kind of wanted to do something different. I wanted to do something that I've never seen done on a Comanche before. I know you've seen it on this Jeep, but just to kind of revisit it, is I actually stretched the wheelbase of this Jeep. I want to say it was 8 or 9 inches. So I have the wheelbase of a long bed Comanche with a short bed. I'll show you another angle of it, but you can see, you know, originally the tire should have been like in line with that bolt hole, like right here. So I found a company online that actually makes bedside armor for Comanches. What I did whenever I was trying to fix everything was, you can see here where I cut the bed to, you know, make a bigger wheel well. I cut this out. I cut the bed off where it was crinkled up, and I had to fix some stuff up here because this whole axle, I mean, it just went forward, and then the rear tire was near about coming out the back. Like, it was bad. It was dramatic. But with the bed armor, what I did was, once I put this sheet metal on behind here, I bolted this on, and then I traced out exactly where I wanted to cut. So when I first bolted this on, it came down like right here. I remember it was like, with this tire on, I couldn't put the armor on. So that's how much I cut out. So I mean, it's pretty stretched. I mean, it drives a heck of a lot better than it did, especially with the leaf springs and then the longer wheelbase. Man, it is night and day difference. So once I got these bolted on, I ran into the issue of down here. So this is pretty much what took most of the damage in this area right here. And I needed to find something to cover it up. And I believe these came from Dirt Bound Off-Road or Dirt Bound Fabrication. And you can see there's pretty much like nothing behind there because the bed was gone. So what I did was I just fabricated a mount to mount it to the bed, and then it's actually attached to this right here. So it's got plenty of support, but the bed that was right there was just garbage, where the tire had just crinkled it. So I do have big plans for this Jeep. Eventually, I'm going to be doing coilovers front and rear. It's going to be a while before I get to that point because honestly, this Jeep works fine. I drive it to work at least twice a week. I take my daughter to school in it. She loves it. This Jeep does very well on and off road. It drives like a standard cab F250. I mean, it drives really good. And it takes trails really good. It just does great all around. Like I've driven it to Ocracoke. I've driven it, on the beach. I've driven it on rocks and mud, and it's just a good Jeep. It really is. But anyway, guys, that's probably going to wrap up this video. I really appreciate y'all watching me talk about how I wrecked my Jeep Comanche. It sucked, yes, but honestly, I think things happen for a reason. And I would like to give a huge shout out to Connor and Brad and all those guys at Barnes 4-Wheel Drive for helping me out and helping me rebuild this Jeep. It definitely wouldn't be where it is now if it wasn't for y'all, and I'm super appreciative of that. And if you want to see any of the parts that I have on this Jeep, make sure that you go to barnes4wheeldrive.com. And also make sure that you are subscribed to my YouTube channel to make sure that you don't miss out on any content on this Jeep. And we will see you on the next one.